Joining us online is Cabot Phillips of our Morning Wire podcast, who recently made his New York Times debut, which we'll get to in a moment, since it is, of course, Halloween. But first, Cabot, I want to talk to you about your speech at the University of Iowa. Things got pretty heated over there.
Yeah, that's right. I've been going to a lot of college campuses, been to about a dozen college campuses this semester since Charlie Kirk's murder. This was a YAF event at the University of Iowa. And there were a lot of very angry leftist students that did not want me there. That happens at every campus. You know better than anyone how that happens when a conservative dares to show their face on a college campus. But there was one particular incident that happened at the University of Iowa that went very viral online. The students were out tabling, trying to advertise for the event. And a student came up, I believe you guys have the video, and was flipping the table, flipping people off, threatening them, and saying some obscene things to them as well. And I do have breaking news for the people that are watching that video. This was actually, I know this is going to shock people, this was, from what I've been told, a transgender student that was engaging in this activity. And I know it's hard to believe that a transgender college student could be capable of acting so irrationally, so illogically, so violently, but that is the situation. And during that event at the University of Iowa, during the week leading up to it, there were all sorts of students cheering this activity on, which makes sense when you know that this is how people feel about conservative ideas coming to campus. But most importantly was the response of people accusing me of doxing the liberal, allegedly transgender student that was flipping the table and threatening the YAF kids. I was doxing them for doing that, is what they accused, which is very ironic because the student was smiling to the camera, giving them the middle finger. The student was clearly very proud. They walked away and gave this dorky high five to one of the other leftist creeps that was standing behind cheering it on. So I don't know if doxing is the right accusation there. And then there were the number of kids saying they were going to come to the event, or the number of kids cheering on this student. And Ben, there were a good number of conservative students there. There were a good number of nice, politically agnostic kids in the middle. Not a single one of these crazy leftist students showed up. Not one of them came to debate. I would like to think that they were terrified of getting owned with facts and logic by Cabot Phillips. Maybe they were terrified that you would make a cameo appearance and that you would step in and smack them around, logically speaking. But none of them came, which again is not surprising. We see this kind of thing all around the country, but also we're seeing it more and more from administrations now too, trying to keep these conservative ideas from campus. I'll give you another example of this. The week before I was at Iowa, I was at the University of Maryland speaking to a Turning Point USA chapter there. The students put in the request, the university approved it, and then right before the event, the university said, hey, this is kind of dangerous speech. This is a controversial speaker from the Daily Wire that's coming. We're going to need to slap a private security fee on. So they told the Turning Point group, you guys have to pay for a private security company to come in and search people's bags and have metal detectors. You have to pay because of threats from the left. They put it on the students. Now, the Turning Point group was great. They said, we're not going to pay this. This is unconstitutional. Fire stepped in and sent legal letters to the school saying that this was a violation of the First Amendment because they were forcing the students to deal and have the onus because of threats from the left. And thankfully, ultimately, the Leadership Institute, a great conservative nonprofit, they stepped in and paid the security fees on behalf of Turning Point. But it didn't end there. Once the event started, I get to the campus. I actually thought that I was walking into the green room for the event because it was so tiny. It felt like the old closet I had in my Manhattan apartment. And I said, this is kind of a tiny room. This is weird. I guess there's something going on. The room quickly fills up with 40 conservative students. And then once they hit 40, the campus police made their appearance. They come in and they say, hey, the room is full for security reasons. We didn't give you guys the lecture hall. We had to have a small contained space for security. So the room is full at 40. Everyone else who was in the audience trying to get in, out in line, what appeared to be the vast majority of the audience, the university said, yeah, sorry, you guys can't come in. It's about safety. So they intentionally stuck us in the smallest classroom on campus for safety. But I think it was clear they wanted to protect the number of students that were actually going to hear those ideas.
I mean, these two events seem to be intertwined. The heckler's veto is obviously incredibly strong. I wonder, Cabot, if you know whether this particular student who we have footage of, I mean, let's show the footage so people understand what you're talking about. Here's some of the footage of students flipping tables, the one particular student flipping tables, going crazy over University of Iowa.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, enjoying life. Here's my question is, were there any repercussions from the University of Iowa administration for this sort of behavior, or would they just kind of look the other way?
To the best of my knowledge, there were no consequences. The students told me that as of the time of the event, that nothing had been done, that this was very par for the course, that this sort of thing was a common occurrence there. And I've asked them to follow up if anything happens. Again, I have not heard that the university did anything, which you'd think that they would want to crack down on this sort of thing, given the environment, given how many Americans were horrified by what happened to Charlie and are now keeping a closer eye on what is coming from the left on college campuses. There were dozens, if not hundreds of comments on a tweet that I posted from this video. So many of them were from parents saying, I have a student at Iowa, got into the University of Iowa circle, I guess, online. So many people saying, hey, I have a student here, or I have high school kids. I want them to go to the University of Iowa. Now I'm not sure. University of Iowa, what is your response? What are you going to do? So you'd think the school would want to step in and do something, but from what I've heard, they still have not.
If you're a homeowner, this is a very, very important thing. In today's AI cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document. They use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee with your county, and just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property. You won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. So, when's the last time you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, you need to do something about it right now. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Many people at the Daily Wire, including a bunch of people on this team, trust Home Title Lock to protect what is probably their biggest asset. Again, the most important thing you own is the equity in your home. If somebody can access that, that is a very bad thing. Use my promo code Ben at HometitleLock.com. You'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. Head on over to HometitleLock.com. Use promo code Ben. That's HometitleLock.com. Promo code Ben. So, meanwhile, Cabot, amidst all of this, you had your debut in the New York Times on of all topics, terrible Halloween displays. So this is over at the New York Times. There's a piece called "Have Halloween Decorations Become Too Scary?" And you were quoted because you were talking about how you walk out of the way a couple of blocks with your 18-month-old son because people are putting up these scary displays. This actually is, I think, for a lot of families, a real issue. The people who are, I think, a little too into the pagan aspect of Halloween have decided that it'll be lots of fun to put, pretty horrifying and terrifying images in public view where small children can see them. What do you make of the phenomenon?
Well, they initially reached out because of some tweets that I had done saying that I think that people who put up overly gory and violent demonic displays should actively be shamed by people in their community. I might sound like a boomer here, but I remember growing up in the 90s, Halloween, crazy concept, was a holiday for little kids. You go trick-or-treating, you might see some spooky stuff, little ghosts and trees and maybe a little fake graveyard and skeletons, spider webs. But that is not what we're seeing more and more today with the advancements in technology and with the advancements of, creepy perverts in society. We have seen more and more overtly demonic, gory, over-the-top, violent displays. In my neighborhood alone, there's a 4-foot inflatable zombie toddler baby with fangs and blood dripping from its face and bulging red eyes. There are a number of decaying corpses hanging from nooses, swaying in trees. And so, when I'm walking with my son, he has no idea what he's looking at. He knows that he's terrified. I can't explain to him what it is. Hey, this is all fake. He's a little kid. He doesn't know that. And that's why this stuff is so dangerous to protecting the innocence of kids. And the response that I've gotten to this has been very telling. The number of people commenting on that New York Times piece, the number of people on my social media saying, "You're a Karen. You're the Scrooge of Halloween. Just tell your kid to look the other way." Karen used to be a phrase that just meant a middle-aged woman freaking out over a minor nuisance in her life. Now it's this catch-all phrase. Anyone in society who wants to protect certain basic cultural norms, they are a Karen. Anyone in society who wants to protect the innocence of little kids, they are a Karen. So in this case, I'm happy to be labeled a Karen if it means ignoring the requests of weirdos who want to traumatize little kids with violent displays in their front yards. I am happy to be a Karen standing with my fellow Karens in the bastion of normalcy when it comes to defending Halloween. And to the people that want to partake in the weird, gory, creepy, demonic stuff, all we're asking as parents, all we're asking as normal Americans is that you do it behind closed doors. Go buy a movie ticket and see a horror movie. Go buy a ticket to a haunted house and partake in all of that stuff you want. Don't put it in your yard. There's a reason that if a guy wanted to celebrate Halloween by putting up a giant display of a topless witch in his yard, you'd say, no, you can't do that. That crosses the line. That's indecent. We're not going to allow you to put this nudity in your front yard for little kids to see. It should be the same thing with this violent stuff. And I'll end on this here. I think a big reason we're seeing this type of stuff happen is, number one, that people, they like revel in exposing little kids to things they shouldn't see. They take sadistic pleasure in it. It's why we see kids being dragged to these, drag time story hours at libraries. It's why we see kids getting dragged to these crazy pride parades. There are a certain sect of society that takes pleasure in exposing kids to things and stripping their innocence from them. And second, there is this growing number of adults who want to prolong their adolescence as long as possible and take things meant for kids and make them for adults. That's why you see so many like Disney adults who would like, no, Disney World is not actually for kids. It's for adults. And you need to accommodate me here. They're now doing that with Halloween, saying Halloween, it's not for little kids. It's just as much for adults, when we all know trick-or-treating and Halloween, it is for little kids. Adults can take part. At its core, it's for little kids. And I'm just trying to defend it. Ben, I got to get your take. Am I being a Karen here? Am I over the top for being offended?
No, I mean,
by these
I totally agree
displays?
with this. I have 4 kids, all of whom are under the age of 12. And when we walk around the neighborhood, and we live where there's an HOA that's pretty strict about what you can display outside your house, but we've been in neighborhoods where that is not the case. And yeah, I mean, there are people who are putting out egregious stuff. And frankly, I do think that I have a right to walk down the street with my children without having to be confronted with gory, hideous images where I have to shield my children's eyes. And I don't think that that's a crazy statement. The stuff that happens in the public sphere actually affects everybody. And pretending that public and private, that distinction needs to go away because of the feelings of adults who wish to act like rowdy teenagers is really silly to me. So, Cabot, I congratulate you on being yet another Gen Z 80-year-old. That's exciting stuff. Cabot, appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ben.
Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.